Yes.
Get ready to take control of your own financial destiny. It's time to build your dream business. Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur.
This just got exciting.
With your host, Spider Graham. Your education starts now.
Hello and welcome to the broadcast. This is Spider Graham, and thanks for joining me today. Now, today I want to talk about beginnings. I want to talk about how we start new things and some of the problems that we run into and some of the challenges that are involved as part of just starting anything new. Now, this is a brand new podcast for me, and I'm very excited to bring to you some of the ideas and things that I think about way too much, perhaps, but things that I've written in my books, things that I've taught in my classes, and things that I think are really ready for you now to understand to help you do a better job at growing your own businesses and finding success. After all, this whole thing is about how do I empower entrepreneurs, other people who are starting businesses, to help them do the best job possible. So that's the real focus of this podcast. And today, talking about how things get started is really the overall theme. Now, my best friend gave me a card a couple of years ago, and it says, "Begin anywhere." And the card is a quote from musician John Cage, and I absolutely loved it. I stuck it to my bulletin board, and I looked at it every day because the challenge that I run into, and I imagine you have some of these challenges as well, is there are times when you try to start something and you think, well, what do I have to do first? What is it I should be focused on? And sometimes it's just starting anywhere. And there are times that I will sit down and I say, okay, I need to write a new chapter for this book I'm writing, or I need to write a new article. Where do I begin? And sometimes the best place to begin is wherever you happen to start. Sometimes I start an article in the middle. I have an idea and says, okay, well, let's start with this paragraph. And then you start there and you look at it and say, okay, now what do I want to say before this? And you start to build that way. And the same thing holds true for just about anything we do. If we sit down and say, okay, well, I need to figure out my business model first, and I need to have all this, and by the way, proper planning, not a bad thing, but sometimes you just have to get started. Because sometimes if you don't just jump in and start getting your feet wet, you have the tendency to spend a lot of time over-analyzing the process. And there's a principle called paralysis of analysis, or paralysis by analysis. And what it basically is saying is that you spend so much time thinking about it that you don't do it. Because you're so busy planning, what if it goes wrong? What if this doesn't happen, etc.? Guess what? Sometimes what you really need to do more than anything else is put it out there and then start to get a sense of what's going on. Does the marketplace like it? Are you getting a response from the people you're trying to reach? Do prospects comment on it? Are you bringing new business in? Whatever it is, you need to sometimes just get it out there. Get it out of your own head, out of your own life, and get a better sense of what the options are. Now, that all said, what I want to talk about today as well is how we get there. Now, I've run into a lot of people in my life who said, well, I really want to work for myself. And I said, okay, fantastic. What's preventing you from working for yourself? And a lot of times it's, well, the lack of security. And guess what? If you want to be an entrepreneur, get used to the lack of security. You're basically driving the bus here, kids. And if you do something fantastic and make a lot of money, you get the benefit. If you don't get the benefit. And the challenge, of course, sometimes is you may have to go and retreat with your tail between your legs and go find the dreaded day job. Now, I'm saying this only half tongue-in-cheek. The real challenge, of course, is not everybody out there is well equipped to be their own boss. I want to talk a little bit about being your own boss and what it really means, and some of the challenges that we all face in business, not only working for other people, but definitely working for ourselves. Let me start with a story about a former neighbor of mine who once came to me and said, hey, I'm thinking of starting a business, and I was wondering if I could talk with you about it. Well, I'm perfectly happy. I love to talk shop. And so I sat down with her to try to get a better sense of what she was doing. Now, she was employed at that time by the U.S. Postal Service, and she was a mail carrier. And I think she originally took the job because she liked the security. She liked the idea that there was a pension. But I think over time, she also started to look at it and said, well, I don't really like what I do for a living. It's kind of dull. I have to go out and deliver mail in all sorts of weather, and it's really not something that's making me feel blissed out. Now, there are pros and cons to every job, obviously. Well, she had gone with a friend to some sort of a presentation. It was a presentation for people who are thinking about buying a business. So the franchise expo, something like that. And she came and said, well, I'm thinking of starting a new business, and it's about running a series of vending machines that I will put on college campuses and in workplaces and other things, and I'll make a lot of money. And I said, okay, tell me more. Well, she told me about this seminar she had gone to, and they made it sound very exciting and very sexy and really fun. And she was really thinking this would be a fantastic way to make a living. If she might be able to supplement it with her regular job, or she also might be able to just not work for the Postal Service anymore and just go off and do this thing. I said, okay, well, let me ask you a really important question, because I think this is something that you're going to need to think about before you get started. I said, what is your opinion of vending machines? And she looked at me and she said, well, I'm not sure I understand what you mean. I said, well, are you passionate about vending machines? And she's like, well, I never really thought about vending machines before. I said, okay, so let me ask you another question. Are you passionate about fixing broken vending machines? And she said, well, not really. I said, are you passionate about going and driving around in a van and visiting vending machines and putting new sodas in them and putting new candy and snacks in them? Is that something that you really think will be what you want to do? And she's like, well, I can do it. I said, yes, but are you passionate about it? Do you look at this and say, this is going to be fun? Do you see yourself 5 years down the road saying, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm so happy I chose this path. And she thought about it for a moment and she said, well, not really. I said, okay, let me ask you this then. What is it about the vending machine business that appeals to you most? And she took a moment and she said, well, I guess I just really like the idea of making money. I said, fantastic. Guess what? There are lots of ways of making money. My suggestion to you is that if you're not passionate about this particular way of making a living, don't do it. Because if you find yourself waking up day after day saying, oh, I hate my job and it's my job and I'm my own boss, then you probably made a mistake somewhere along the way. The bottom line, as I see it, is you need to have something that you feel passionate about. Starting a business just to make money isn't enough. I'm not saying the money is not an important part of it, but if all you're doing is making money, there are great ways to make money that are probably easier than starting your own company. So you have to be able to be passionate about what you do. You also need to think about what you really want to do with your life. I mean, there's a philosophy that goes behind this. Why do you want to work for yourself? By the way, there's a lot of illusions of self-employment. And a lot of people will say to me, you're so lucky you get to work for yourself. I say, well, I don't know how lucky I am. I made it happen. And by the way, you're so lucky you get paid vacations and you get sick days and you get a lot of things that self-employment doesn't give you, right? You might even have a retirement fund. Maybe I'm jealous of you. Now, obviously, what I do for a living, I enjoy doing very, very much. I enjoy doing it. I'm very passionate about it. I'm very happy that I discovered this path for myself. And it's not to say you can't find something, but you don't have to do what I do, but you can find something that is also going to be very interesting and passionate to you. But, you just want to be able to be in a position where you understand that everything that you are going to be doing for your living when you are self-employed, you are going to eat, breathe, and sleep that. And if you don't like the topic or you think the work is boring, don't do it. That's not where you want to be. You'd be much happier working a day job. Now, once again, not everybody is equipped to go out and start their own company, and that's fine. But if you decide somewhere along the way that you want to start a business, then you need to think about the why behind it. Several years ago, I was watching television and there was a local expo that was talking about franchises and people just, you can own your own business. And, of course, this is appealing to a lot of people. They see the power and control and the freedom that goes along with it. But there's a lot of illusions there. And I was watching this ad, this promotion for this trade show. They had I think they're faux testimonials where these people would stand up and say, wow, ever since I started my own business, I've made more money. And this one guy saying, ever since I started my own business, now I have more time to spend with my family and friends. And my thought was, no, you don't. That's nonsense. That's the first thing you realize when you go into business for yourself is that you work harder and longer than anybody else generally. You probably make less money too, but you get to drive your own bus. You get to make some decisions to control your destiny. And one of the things that we like to keep in mind from an entrepreneurial standpoint is that there's nothing wrong working for somebody else. Absolutely nothing wrong working for somebody else, but there are trade-offs. You don't always get a chance to call the shots. You don't get a chance to say, hey, I have a fantastic idea that I'd like to see put in motion. You really don't have that unless you're some upper management position. And in most cases, you just have to do what you have to do. So that's one of the trade-offs. The other side, of course, is that there are times when the illusion of self-employment is really that. It's an illusion. And a lot of times people will say, well, you get to be your own boss. And I say, yeah. And one of the things I've learned being my own boss is that I'm allowed to eat lunch anytime I want. as long as it's at my desk. The thing is, it's a bit of golden handcuffs, to be totally honest with you. As much as I love working for myself, there are days you wake up and you say, oh, I don't really feel like doing this. And you look at the list of things on your to-do list and you say, okay, let's get to work. And part of it is just being an adult. Part of it is just doing things you don't want to do. And part of it is making yourself do things you don't want to do and not saying, well, I don't want to do that, so I don't need to. And you can't tell me, you're not the boss of me. The paradox here sometimes is that working for yourself, you end up working for the toughest boss you'll ever have. I make myself work all the time. I make myself do jobs I really don't want to do. But that's part of the process. Anyway, I bring this up because I think before you jump into anything, whether it's starting a new business or any type of career move, you have to ask yourself the important questions. Is this something I can see myself doing? And you also have to be able to have a deep enough passion to get you through the tough days. And by the way, there are plenty of tough days when you work for yourself. No illusions there. There are days when you will wake up and you will look in the mirror and say, who am I kidding? How am I going to make this work? No one's going to buy from me. We have good days, we have bad days. It's a human thing. And there are days when you're going to wake up and you're going to be on top of the world. You're going to be ready to take it. And you say, hey, I know what I'm doing. I have a focus. Things are really working. The phone is ringing. Whatever it is that you want to have happen, you've made it happen. Anyway, you need to be able to check the fire in the belly from time to time. When you get started, absolutely take some time to dig deep down and say, do I love what I get to do here? Do I want to start this business because I love the topic, because I love the people I get to work with, because I love to think about this and deal with this 24/7? Because that will be your reality. And like I said, you have to look down the road a little bit and say, will I be happy doing this in a year? Will I be happy doing this in 5 years? Can I see myself doing this for the rest of my career? Obviously, you don't have to go down and do anything for the next 30 years if you don't want to. But at some point, you have to get momentum. You have to work on it and grow the business. And so it's going to take some time to get there. And if you're saying, well, I'm going to start a business and sell it, hey, fantastic if you can do that. But not everybody gets a chance to sell their business. And the last thing I want to share with you, and this is incredibly important, is that you absolutely, positively, without reservations, need to believe in yourself. It's a hard thing to go it alone. It's a very hard thing sometimes, especially when you're surrounded by people who love you and want things to go well for you. Sometimes they will be less candid and say, well, you sure you want to do this? You're not making any money. You work really hard. Is anyone ever going to buy your product or is anyone going to go to your website? Whatever it is. And there are times when you are going to feel a bit of self-defeat. But if you constantly go back and say, hey, I believe in my dream, I believe in what I'm doing, then that is going to get you through the rough parts. And in most cases, the people who have been interviewed who have said that they were successful because they stuck to something, the 2 points they bring up, and this is almost across the board, is that first of all, they believed in their mission. They believed in what they were doing. They believed in their dreams. And the second thing, and this is perhaps the most important thing, we'll talk about this in a future podcast, is they never gave up on themselves. Like I said, there are days when you feel like you've been whacked in the head, but you have to constantly go back to that and say, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. One of my favorite expressions in the entire world is a quote by Winston Churchill. It just says, never, 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 never give up. And I think it's incredibly important advice. The people who give up are the people who never make it to their goals, never make it to be able to see their dreams come alive. And the people who are willing to go through the swamp, and by the way, we have this tendency to believe that where we're starting and where we want to go to is some beautiful straight line and there are rainbows and unicorns. Never looks like that. It is a circuitous route. It's through the muckiest, nastiest swamp sometimes, and you're going to lose your boots. But you keep plugging away, you keep going, and you'll get from where you are today to where you want to be. Anyway, that's all I have for this short broadcast. Once again, please feel free to visit us at spidergram.com. We'd love to have your input. Would love to have you, certainly as a subscriber, come on in, join the group that's having some fantastic discussions. By the way, all sorts of great resources in there, not only more podcasts, but of course videos, training videos, courses, webinars, all the things that you need to become an empowered entrepreneur and also to learn the best parts of digital marketing and advertising so that you can drive traffic to your web properties, find your customers, make sales, make money, have a better life. That's what we're trying to do here. We want you to have a better life. So please join us anytime you can. That's all I have. Spidergram, peace out.
For more free resources and advice for entrepreneurs, visit spidergram.com and become a subscriber today.